is not about power, it's not about where you come from, it's not about the size of our country. It's about love for football, love for the community.
Even though it's a small island of Africa, we still have big, big dreams coming.
Imagine a country of barely 500,000 people, scattered across volcanic islands in the Atlantic, standing between Cameroon and a 9th World Cup appearance. Cameroon had the stars, the history, and 8 previous qualifications. Cabo Verde had never been there. Then the Blue Sharks took the place for themselves. Cabo Verde is a chain of 10 volcanic islands lying hundreds of kilometers off the coast of West Africa. 9 are inhabited. Together, they are home to roughly 525,000 people, fewer than many major cities. Yet in October 2025, this tiny archipelago became one of the smallest nations ever to qualify for the FIFA World Cup. To understand why that achievement meant so much, you have to understand how the country itself was created. For most of human history, these islands appear to have had no permanent population. Portuguese navigators reached them in the 15th century, and settlers began establishing themselves on Santiago in the 1460s. But the society that emerged was not built only by European explorers. Portugal brought enslaved Africans to the islands, turning Cabo Verde into an important station in the expanding Atlantic slave trade. Ships arrived from the African mainland carrying men, women, and children who had been captured and sold. Some were forced to work on the islands. Others were transported onward across the ocean. Over time, African and Portuguese languages, traditions, religions, and family histories became intertwined. A distinct Creole society developed, with its own identity and language, Crioulo. Cabo Verde was born from movement across the sea, but much of that movement was forced. And even after the slave trade declined, the islands remained difficult to survive on. Rainfall was unreliable. Long droughts destroyed crops, killed livestock, and left communities without enough food. During the 19th and 20th centuries, repeated famines devastated the population, while colonial neglect made several disasters worse. Families faced a brutal decision: remain and risk starvation, or leave the only home they knew. Many left. Some traveled to São Tomé and Príncipe to work on plantations. Others joined whaling ships and crossed the Atlantic. Later generations settled in Portugal, the United States, France, the Netherlands, Senegal, Angola, and beyond. Emigration became so central to Cabo Verdean life that the country developed one of the world's most remarkable diasporas. The International Organization for Migration estimates that around 700,000 Cabo Verdeans live abroad, more than the population at home. That separation produced one of the country's most powerful cultural ideas: saudade. Saudade is difficult to translate with one English word. It is longing, absence, love, memory, and sadness at the same time. It is missing a person or place, while knowing that distance has become part of your life. In Cabo Verde, that feeling found its voice in Morna, a slow, emotional musical tradition shaped by poetry, melody, and departure. Morna sings about the sea, separation, and the islands left behind. Its greatest international voice was Cesaria Evora, the singer from Mindelo who often performed barefoot and carried Cabo Verdean music around the world. Her songs made people who had never seen the islands feel the ache of leaving them. A scattered people found a way to remain emotionally connected to a few small pieces of land in the Atlantic. Decades later, football began performing the same function. Cabo Verde could never build a competitive national team by looking only at players living on the islands. Its population was too small, its domestic league had limited resources, and many talented footballers had grown up elsewhere. So the national team turned toward the diaspora. Players born or raised in European cities began choosing the Blue Sharks. Some knew Cabo Verde through summer visits. Others knew it through parents, grandparents, food, music, language, and stories. They could have waited for opportunities with their birth countries, but instead represented the country their families had carried with them. Dylan Livramento was born in Rotterdam. Roberto Lopez was born in Dublin. Steven Moreira grew up in France. Their journeys were different, but the shirt connected them to the same origin. For many, representing Cabo Verde was a way to honor relatives who had crossed oceans because staying home had once become impossible. The man who brought them together understood that identity better than almost anyone. Pedro Leitão Brito, known as Bubista, was born on Boa Vista. His nickname comes from the Cabo Verdean Creole name for his home island. Before becoming national coach, he was a defender and captained Cabo Verde for more than a decade. He knew the years when the team was an afterthought and the football world barely noticed them. Bubista became head coach in 2020 and built a disciplined, organized team that was extremely difficult to break down. Cabo Verde lacked the individual talent of Africa's giants, so it relied on structure, patience, counter-attacking speed, and collective responsibility. At the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations, the Blue Sharks reached the quarterfinals. That run was a warning. The World Cup qualifiers proved it was not a one-off. Their campaign did not begin like a fairy tale. In June 2024, Cameroon beat Cabo Verde 4-1. It looked like a reminder of the natural order. Cameroon were five-time African champions, the first African nation to reach a World Cup quarterfinal, and the continent's most frequent World Cup representatives. Cabo Verde seemed too small to challenge them across an entire campaign. But the Blue Sharks recovered. They collected points while Cameroon stumbled, and in September 2025 the teams met again in Praia with control of the group at stake. Heavy rain fell across the artificial pitch. Cameroon had Andre Onana, Andre Frank Zambo Anguissa, Carlos Baleba, and players competing at the highest levels of European football. Cabo Verde had a packed stadium, a clear system, and no intention of stepping aside. Early in the second half, Livramento collected the ball and drove forward. He carried it over half the pitch, escaped the defenders chasing him, and fired a low shot beyond Onana. Cabo Verde won 1-0. It was more than revenge. The victory placed the Blue Sharks 4 points clear at the top, with 2 matches remaining. Suddenly, Cameroon were not chasing qualification. They were chasing Cabo Verde. The island nation then survived a dramatic 3-3 draw away to Libya, leaving one final task. On October 13th, 2025, Cabo Verde hosted Eswatini at the National Stadium in Praia. Victory would confirm the first World Cup qualification in the country's history. The first half ended goalless, and tension grew. 3 minutes after the break, Livramento scored. Willy Semedo made it 2-0 in the 55th minute. In stoppage time, veteran defender Stopira, an international since 2008, added the third. Cabo Verde had done it. At the same time, Cameroon drew 0-0 with Angola. The Blue Sharks finished first in the group, 4 points above the indomitable Lions. A nation smaller than many cities had beaten Africa's most experienced World Cup country across a 10-match campaign. Celebrations spread through Praia, Mindelo, and the islands, then far beyond the archipelago. Cabo Verdeans in Lisbon, Rotterdam, Paris, Boston, Providence, and other diaspora communities celebrated the same result. Families separated by migration were connected by one scoreboard. That is what makes this qualification different. It is not only the story of an underdog defeating a giant. It is the story of a country whose people have spent centuries leaving, returning, remembering, and rebuilding their relationship with home. At the World Cup, some supporters will arrive from the islands. Others will come from countries where their parents or grandparents settled. Some may have visited Cabo Verde many times. Others may know it only through family stories. But when the anthem begins, all will represent the same scattered nation. Cabo Verde was born on previously uninhabited islands, shaped by slavery, tested by drought and famine, and dispersed across the world. In 2025, football brought that world back together. The Blue Sharks did not simply qualify for a tournament. They gave Saudade a destination. Next, we traveled to Haiti, the nation born from the only successful slave revolution in history, returning to the World Cup with an even more explosive story. Subscribe so you do not miss it.